Now you may be thinking about the M1 Mac and specifically the MacBook Air. Now we do things a little bit differently around here, and I was thinking, what kind of tests would really help you with that buying decision? So I figured, why not actually test out some cinema footage? The kind of footage, the kind of cameras that they use in the movies. Because why not? Let's go. What is going on, you beautiful humans? Welcome back to the channel. And yes, today what we are going to be doing is throwing a little bit of cinema camera footage at the M1 MacBook Air. Now I will put timestamps throughout the video. However, really the largest portion is going to be in the middle where we get into the workflow. I've already got one camera set up. I'm going to bring you in, but let's actually talk about what we are going to be doing here. Now, when we talk about cinema camera, I'm not talking about a camera that you can literally just pull off a shelf at your local camera shop. I'm talking about cameras that are as expensive as some, depending on the city or the state that you live in, could probably buy you a house. The Arri Alexa 65 and the Arri line of cameras are the ones that are typically film cameras and probably have filmed some of the movies that you have certainly enjoyed and appreciated, even for myself. But what I want to tell you is that a couple of things to temper the expectations when we talk about this 6.5K footage. Now, you cannot take the raw files from the Arri Alexa and throw that into Final Cut Pro. So what we did was I put it into the Arri RAW converter. And what I had to do is take those raw files, manually had to do it, each clip. And what I had to do is go in and convert that to either a 444 XQ or 444 or a 422 HQ. And we're talking about ProRes files. These are not proxy files. So there is no proxies and everything is either in 6.5K or it is in 4K. And what we're gonna be doing is looking at that footage, moving it around the timeline, doing a little bit of edit. I've got a rough cut going, not on the MacBook Air. I haven't really tried it, but on the Mini, I just put a rough cut together. The MacBook Air that I'm working with has 16 gigs of RAM, but it is a 256 gig hard drive. However, what we're gonna be doing, for those of you that are thinking about it, we're going to edit this and put it together on the external drive, the fastest external drive. And I also did a video on that. We'll link that up. I've talked enough. Let's get into the workflow and let's actually just show you what's happening. All right, here we go, a little behind the scenes. Got the mic in the shot because the kids are home and it's a little crazy. Let's also show you that I am working off of the Air and connected to my external monitor. Now what we have here, so let's just double check Final Cut Pro. We are better quality. We are original optimized, so no proxy files, none of that. And everything, like I said, there are no proxy files that we're working with. Nothing has been rendered. We're gonna look at the timeline, but let's go into the package contents here. And we are going to take a look. Original media, so no render, no exports, nothing. I don't even know what this thing's gonna export at because I forgot to tell you, we're going to scale it up to 8K H.264 for YouTube. Now, folks, I have to tell you, there is no way that you're going to be able to understand how beautiful this footage is. I can understand from a filmmaker standpoint why these things cost so much. It's obscene. And I understand that there are handhelds that are doing, 6K, 8K, the Pocket Cinema Camera, Blackmagic. It's just different. All right, so just to give you some context here, let's look at this file just to double check that this is 422 HQ. This is in 6K. I also have a 4K clip that is in 444 XQ as well. And let's just play through this. I obviously have a little bit of sound design here. We're gonna do some correction. And I already have I just wanted to put something together for you because this actually took me a while, but I didn't do it on the Air. I did it on the Mini, but we'll still do some correction together. So let's just see what's happening here. One of the things too, That was kind of a jump in the clip, so that wasn't like a drop frame or anything. We'll just kind of move this over, a little bit of a transition. Now there's no movement here, but this is a pulling focus in this botanic garden. It's very subtle, probably something that you can't pick up on the screen necessarily, and I didn't want to do any screen recorders because obviously you're not going to be editing that way. Let's just move over into this transition. Put a little bit of sound design in this. I mean, it's playing, but it is, CPU kind of kicks up, the graphics card, or the graphics card, but the graphics on the chip is definitely kicking up above 75%. And the CPU kind of fluctuates, it's up and down. Now my memory's not under a lot of pressure right now, but I don't really have a lot going on. I have a browser open in Final Cut Pro, but just, again, so just scrubbing through this. Now let's do an edit. So let's double check something here. Let's get rid of, let's go to this, and what I want to do is look at my vector scope here. So we're going to blow this up. Something that I typically do. Just going to look at skin tones here. And let's put in a mask. I just want to double check the skin tones. Usually, if you had seen a video that I did about that, just kind of, this is how I do it. I want to isolate the hue, the skin tones, of course. But as you'll see over here, now this isn't like a vector scope class or like a scopes class or anything like that, or tutorial rather. But what I can see is that along this line here, this actually, I don't even really need to correct it. So I would usually go into this and kind of drag, and then I might manipulate it a little bit and just kind of look at that. See how, like, if I'm moving this, how that's moving on the vector scope. So, I mean, I just wouldn't do much at all. So let's go back out. Let's get rid of the mask. We could probably, let's add an effect though. So let's at least do a little bit of color, just for the sake of saying that we're doing some edits here. And of course, typically when I do color too, especially around skin tones, I usually pop that mask on just to double check that things are where they need to be. Also too, let's go back here. Oof. Okay. Again, I would do this, as I've said before, really different. But you don't want to be here for like an hour watching this mess. A little bit of correction, just playing back. Let's double check. Yep. CPU's kicked up. GPU definitely. It's close to 100. Okay, let's come over to this clip. This has no correction. Let's just take a look. Simple enough. Let's just bring up the exposure. do something with the curves. Again, please don't consider this like a tutorial here. And so let's do that. See what's going on there. Ooh, right there. I mean, it's so hard because the footage is so good. But I just wanted to put something in there. It's playing. Here, let's just move that over. How about let's throw in a transition. Something from these transitions work on. Let's see what this looks like. I have no idea. Oh, that's gonna look. Oh, maybe not. All right, third-party transition. Nothing. CPU touching about 75%. GPU 75%, spikes to about 100. Let me just test a little bit, like the thermals. I just want to max out the CPU. That was an ugly transition. So the SSD saying it's like at 127 degrees. But again, we're working on the external. Just to show you, read and write's happening on the external. Now, of course, the program is sitting on the internal. See what that looks like. So that is slowed down. Let me double check that. Because again, it's just a matter of like pushing this a little bit. Because there's no fan in this thing. That was that kind of like weird thing. I'm seeing... That definitely looks... I think we're dropping. We're dropping. And that's just a terrible transition again. .60 frames, playback. All right, here I am kind of looking at my stats. I know you probably just kind of want to see the footage a little bit, but... And of course, this is... It's slowed down. Yeah, so that wasn't a clean transition here. Thing is, folks, I'm seeing this for the first time with you on the Air here. I mean, if I don't share these things, then you certainly can't make the buying decision that you need to make. So that's what I'm just trying to help you with. But here's the thing. You are shooting on an Arri Alexa camera, you are not editing anything on an M1 Mac. You're just not. I mean, the CPU and the GPU are definitely working together. So what I'm thinking too is here, again, I think as far as our thermals are concerned, we're reaching, yeah, I mean, 185, so GPU, yeah, I mean, that sucker's, it's at 174 Fahrenheit and is dropping. So the SSD is hanging at, it says 135, but yeah, everything else, GPU, I mean, 195, 197. I guess if I post this video, the MacBook Air didn't melt. Why don't we go ahead? We've got some correction. We've got some transitions in here. Why don't we see what happens when we try to not render it? I'm just going to export it at the way that it is, as far as, so no render, just export H.264 8K, so upscaled 8K for YouTube. Let's just see what it does. Does that sound good? 2-minute 20-second clip. And again, for those of you that are wanting me to keep stacking and do like a 20-minute timeline, again, let's temper our expectations here on an M1 Mac, and also our time, because we're going to be here forever. So let's go ahead and get the timer happening here. We're going to export master file. We're going to go not 422. We're going to go to H.264 up to an 8K. So let's get it going. So we got, let's see, Arri sample for YouTube 8K. All right, here we go. So let's actually take a look and see what's happening. So 180 degrees. CPU is definitely kicking up. GPU is working too. $184. I just want to see with the thermals how this might kick down. All right, there we go. 19 minutes, 25 seconds. Perspective, folks. That's the thing. 6.5K cinema footage with some 4K. Upscaled to 8K for H.264 for YouTube. I mean, what more can I say? If you don't completely understand what it is that I'm talking about as far as the footage that I'm using, the thing is like, just to reiterate, you can certainly use these machines for quite a bit of footage. I really wanted to stress this thing out. And honestly, I think I need to do some like simpler videos coming up, because yeah, these things that take like days up to a week, all of this research, but just putting into context, folks, again, with my previous MacBook Pro and an eGPU not being able to render, or at least, export a 8-bit 4K H.264 for YouTube, that taking me anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes with all of that, versus being able to take this footage, scale it to 8K, and export it in less time, 19 minutes, 25 seconds. I would have never been able to do that on this Intel-based machine that I have. Just putting it in perspective. So remember, this is the M1, this is the baseline. It's only going to continue to get better from here. I just wanted to give you at least some kind of benchmark and stress it the heck out. And that's what we have. Speaking of that, really appreciate your time and attention on this one. You know where to find me around here on YouTube, Twitter, hit me up. You go do those things. Keep rocking those faces. I really appreciate your time and attention on this one. I'm going to keep creating some more value for you here, and probably, again, maybe some shorter videos. Go do those things, and I'll catch you right back here on the next one.